Hello everyone and welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer and after 40 years in business I'm 100% sure that the success of companies is directly related to the passion of the people working for these companies. With the Cappuccino of HR we created a format where we really invite people, it's HR leaders, it's recruiters, it's talent acquisition guys, and we're talking about all the different kind of topics, and the range is going from AI of course to new work, to leadership, and all the challenges along the way. Yeah, hello and welcome to a new episode of Cappuccino with HR. And today I'm really pleased to have Jessie Schofer, co-founder of Stakkd, as my guest. Hi, Jessie.
Hi, Rudy. Thanks for having me.
It's really a pleasure to have you here. And the first question, as it's called Cappuccino with HR, is what's your favorite coffee?
Oh, my favorite coffee is a latte with soy milk.
Okay.
You know what's funny? I actually didn't start drinking coffee till I was about 26 and a half, almost 27, I think.
Okay.
So it's just been a new thing for me. And yeah, everyone can't understand how I didn't drink coffee for that long, but I managed, and now I'm completely addicted.
Yeah, I think I fell into the coffee drinking scene with 16 or 17, so I'm
Oh.
really into it since many, many
Nice.
years now. And yeah, but coffee is really fine. Uh, Before we start, I really would ask you probably to introduce yourself in a few sentences. So to give the audience a kind of a clue who you are, what Stakkd is doing. So probably you can give us a short introduction. That would be extremely nice.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I'm Jess. I'm Australian. I live in Berlin, in Germany, since 7 years now, which is crazy how fast that time went. And recently, I founded Stakkd, which is a HR tech database. It helps HR and TA professionals find all of the amazing tech that's on the market right now because it's quite it's a quite a big market, and so we wanted to make it just easier to discover and find the right tooling rather than googling around and not really getting that depth. You can actually go in there and really find everything on the market and shortlist the best things for your business. And prior to that, I was working in scale ups in the Berlin startup space, some unicorns, in the leadership team of people and kind of culture area, always looking at the infrastructure, the tech, the process, the systems. And that's also why I love that space. I've been in it for years. And even before that, I was in the Australian government doing process transformation projects, portfolio management. So I kind of, shifted into this HR space, in the second half of my career. And yeah, I've actually loved it. It's been the best thing that I've done, being in this space and working with amazing people, building businesses. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this chat with you.
Really cool. And you made it quite easy for me because what I normally try to do is to find some kind of background information. And I found a really nice statement, two really nice statements on your LinkedIn profile. So the first one is in your banner, which is on the top or ahead of your picture, which says HR tech shouldn't be complicated.
Exactly.
So what do you think is the most complicated thing in HR or probably in HR tech? Or what could HR tech solve
Mhm.
for HR to make it less complicated?
I mean, that's actually a really good question. From my experience, I noticed that teams were there's a challenge with tech sometimes. The teams, traditionally HR didn't need to worry about tech. They used the tech that was there. It was probably SAP, or it was some kind of system that's been there for a long time. They weren't building everything new, building system here and there. It was kind of a very stable environment. Then what happened was HR now has this new kind of expectations, the new challenge, and new things they have to bring into the business, like technologies. And, that can be complicated. It can be kind of scary sometimes. It can be something that you don't have a competency in. And, it shouldn't be complicated. It shouldn't be hard, but it can be for businesses and for teams that haven't worked with that before. So, why should you know about technology and how to do, a procurement process to choose the right tech? If you've never done that before, why should you know how to do project management if that's not your profession? So there are things now that HR need to, get in their toolkit. And what Stacked is trying to do is trying to make that whole process end to end, finding the tech, choosing the tech, doing the procurement and the project management, making that easier. So
Mhm.
to do that, well, how do you make technology easier? Well, firstly, you've got to learn something. You get new skill sets, you reference templates, you talk to experts, you inform yourself. That's the first step, and that's what we're trying to do with Stakkd, and why I put out a lot of content. I put everything out for free, to help people feel more confident in the topic as a first step. So making tech less complicated is actually somehow not really to do with the tech. It's actually to do with the people and the teams and the confidence, right?
But what I normally see is that, I mean, getting the right tech into the organization means first understanding the problems, right, and having the right clue of what's really going wrong. Are we already at this level in the organization out there? Because sometimes I get the impression that we try to find a technical solution for something that we haven't even understood right. So we try to solve an issue without knowing what exactly the issue is. Yeah. So that is probably what I experience sometimes, that we are now praying for artificial intelligence. AI is solving all our problems. Yeah. But if we ask someone to describe the problem, we don't get we get a lot of question marks and probably kind of, yeah.
I absolutely agree. And that's why the whole end-to-end process of tech isn't really about tech, right? It's about, what does the business need? Exactly like you said, what is the business strategy? Where is it going? Where are we now? What do we need? What are the challenges? But also, is this the best, and most effective use of this resource, money and people, to get this particular tech right now, or something different, or a different project in a different team? So this whole structure of operating model, like, how does a business make decisions? What are its principles? How does it, align strategy across the business? How do we, work with other teams? How do we work with our candidates? How do we work with our stakeholders? All these ways of working, which, and the technologies, the processes, they all form like this operating model, not just the people one, but the broader company operating model. And this is what I think is actually quite broken at the moment in business. And it leads to exactly the challenge that you just spoke about. People don't really know where to start. So you can't really start without the foundations. And we're trying to start without foundations. And then we're like you said, I don't know. I'm not really sure what I need. The data's not good. Can't use AI if the data isn't there. Like, there's a lot of things that we need to do, but absolutely starting with the foundations would be a good step.
But do you see it as an HR problem, or do you see it more as a company problem?
Oh, I mean, twofold. Yes and no. Organizational structure is generally something that HR works on, and the way the technologies that employees interact with, and how they, move through their employee journey generally is and should be part of the HR function. What I don't think is fully, the responsibility of a HR function or people function is this whole foundation of how the business operates. So even if you have a good, well-oiled people team, operating model, that affects business operating, because a lot of things that HR does, they're actually doing for the business, and it's a process that has, a two-way street. And I think what we're lacking in business is this it's the siloed thinking. We're lacking this team and respect and business, I don't know, but like team player mindset, where it's like, okay, we're actually here to build each other up. We're here to achieve a common goal. Let's work together. Let's get these principles down pat. Let's get all the, managers on board with what we're doing. Let's champion it from the top. We all talk about how good that is, why we need to do it, but it doesn't happen. So there's lack of support on one side in the HR space, that means that they can't really get on and do things. And two, sometimes HR is lacking support, funding, whatever you want to call it, sometimes also competency, in that space. So multitude of problems, but I don't think that it's solely a HR challenge. I think it is a leadership and, business decision, and HR is a core component of executing.
A second statement which I found on LinkedIn, which I even like more than on your LinkedIn profile, is HR is dead. Let's build the future together. I really like this. How would you explain that in a few sentences? What do you mean with that?
Okay, well, I mean, it is a bit bold, but I do think the old way of doing HR should be a little bit dead and buried. I mean, people, it's a bit polarizing when I say that. People are like, no, what are you talking about? And other people are like, yes. Um, I mean that I think what we've done over the years and what I've seen is, the way we build a business and how we build HR has kind of been like just stacked on top of each other. We're like, oh, let's just put that in here. And, like you're building a house and you're like, let's just add on another room. And you just kind of stick it on. It's like, you're not going to get a really great looking house at the end of that. It might function, but it's not really optimized. So if you're looking for like optimal, business growth, and you're looking for a stable business without toxicity, without, without having the slow pace of things because you have poor process, all of this stuff, like you need to have a good HR function. And good can be defined in many ways, but the way we're doing it now just doesn't work. And it's because of how business also works with HR, but I just think it needs to be completely broken down and completely rebuilt new, noting the fact we have so much technology available to us. It will change the way HR functions completely. So that's what I mean by HR is dead. Let's just like start with clean slate.
Mhm.
Throw out everything we used to know about HR and like start again.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, when I remember, I mean, I'm now in the business for 40 years, so nearly 40 years. And when I started working and when I started my career, I mean, HR was, I mean, it was not even called HR at this time, but the mindset, and I think the mindset is still like this, and I would like to discuss that, get on your opinion on it. I think the mindset of HR as an organization or part of the organization, a company, was a purely purchasing mindset. So it was a purchasing a resource from the market as quick as possible, as cheap as possible, and as effective as possible. With
Mm-hmm.
employer branding and with this kind of changing of the social demographics that we now tend to move in all the areas into kind of, well, complete changed kind of settings that we don't have unemployment rates more or less. I think it's everybody has got his job, so we need to attract talent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think this mindset needs to change from a kind of purchasing mindset into a marketing mindset.
Mm.
And is that part of your thesis that HR is dead because they have to reinvent themselves totally?
Yeah, partly. Yeah, absolutely. I do think that there are areas of the world and areas of business where, they're not doing employer brand very well. Maybe they don't need to. There's always some ebbs and flows in demand and supply in the market. I mean, now we're in a little bit of a little bit more of an employer space. I would say the last years were definitely more of an employee space. But regardless, I don't think that should change. I don't think businesses should be like, well, let's screw people and be completely different, until things turn around, and then they're back to like, oh no, we're a lovely business that wants to support employees. Like you need to have consistency as a business, I think. So
Mm,
focusing on what that consistent brand is of the business and how you do things, and why you do things. I think that's a lot of the time missing. How and the
mm,
why um, is very much lost. And I think, HR is again not in control of a lot of these things.
mm,
HR could be like, it's fantastic. We should, do this and this. We could pay at the 80th percentile for these kind of roles for these reasons. And we do this benchmarking and we have this, whatever it is, whatever offer package, and we want this tool to make it the best employee experience, whatever. But if that's not something that one is the most important priority for the business, or not seen as a priority, or there's not enough resourcing to support that, or there's not enough buy-in internally from stakeholders, you can't do it,
mm,
right? So part of the reinventing is HR learning the business language. So learning when it's a good idea and what to reinvent and how to do it
mm,
with the business support, right? Um,
mm,
the other part is the business, and the other part of the business. I say the business, but every HR is part of the business. The other parts of the business, working with HR, working, with the executives, they need to all come together and like do this as a team, not as a blame game, not as a scapegoat, not as a way to, cut drastic costs, and, treat people unfairly, which I think I've
mm,
seen businesses do. And then,
mm,
HR get the blame. It's like,
Yeah.
I never made a decision on on compensation on my own in HR. Like never, absolutely never was there a decision on compensation without some kind of authority from finance or a CEO or
Yeah.
some kind of, other leadership input. So, there's not decisions just happening. So yeah, that's where I think, redesigning themselves, reinventing needs to happen, but it's not always in their control, which I think is the hard part for HR. They unfortunately aren't always in control.
Yeah, but does it mean that HR needs to become more brave and more bold in
Oh,
how they work with top management and how they work with the CEO and finance and I'm in business for quite a while now, and I've never met a company not having a marketing strategy. I've never met a company not having a sales strategy or product strategy, but I only met a few companies having a really good people strategy. So really having a kind of a really strategic view on what kind of resources do we need in the future, how we are set up as an organization, where do we have the biggest need for developing our employees, into which direction. I think there's a really basic strategic approach. And I'm missing that, still missing that in a lot of companies. I mean, it's kind of still having this kind of reactive kind of modus where, okay, somebody has left the organization, we need to find a replacement. Somebody's going to probably leave the organization, so we need to have a look for a replacement. That it's not this kind of strategic, future-oriented access to the topic. It's more this kind of, okay, if something happens, we will react on it.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree on that. Yeah. The way my brain has just frozen, Rudy. I don't know why. I think it was a bird flew across my screen and I got distracted.
No problem. No problem.
You said I can't. My brain just completely lost what you said. Just give me
No,
the
no.
top.
I said, okay. Do we have enough people strategy out in the
Ah,
company?
yeah.
This is it.
No, now I
Okay.
got it back. I was like, the
Okay.
bird just took my brain away somewhere. It flew off with it. No, that's right. So I absolutely agree with all of what you said around strategy. And you're absolutely right that businesses generally, that I've also been in, generally didn't have strategy, didn't have a plan, didn't have a roadmap. And that hurt them, absolutely hurts them. I agree that it needs to be done. I think it comes down to, again, I said earlier that HR didn't used to have to do these things. It wasn't an expectation that HR had to do this, and I did HR as part of my business studies. I didn't learn anything about business in any of those
Yeah.
HR studies. Nothing useful that actually
Yeah.
helps me in the job that I had in HR. Nothing that I learned in HR helped me in HR. All of the skill sets that I utilized in my leadership roles in HR were things that I learned working in other functions of the business. So I worked in portfolio management and projects. So that is all about how do you tie business investment back to a strategy? How do you prioritize and resource plan? And then how do you execute change into a business? So all of that helped me be able to do budget planning, resource planning, headcount planning, project planning, align to the strategy, communicate the vision, roll out the projects, roll out the change, and communicate. I had those skill sets. I'm not the average person who comes into leadership into HR. The general pathway of someone in leadership in HR has been, they've been in HR, they've been a HR manager, then they jump up, maybe they do something else, learning and development, maybe talent management, and they're very specialized in very specific things in HR as like I would say the more soft side of HR versus the more business technical side of HR that is the future, right? When I say technical and business HR, that is these things like budget planning, headcount planning, resource planning, etc. Like they never had to do it. Now we're saying, well, why don't you have it? And they're going, well, I've never had to do it before, and I haven't learned how to do it in my studies. And most of the people who've done it before also didn't do it. So now we've got to work out, how do we upskill and bring in the right people and share that kind of knowledge that other parts of the business have into these functions and kind of cross-pollinate. So we've got a lot of upskilling to do, I think, in people teams and in the HR functions. And it should be fun. It shouldn't be seen as anything but fun, like learning something new and then being able to set the expectation and work with the business, be bold, have numbers, talk about it, play on the same playing field. It feels so good when you can do that.
Yeah.
And I guess that should be the goal.
Yeah. And as AI is, I mean, I think the most used buzzword out in the market, so everybody's talking
Yeah,
about it. Do you
it
think
is.
AI could be a kind of a part, or how could you turn AI from being part of the problem to being part of the solution for HR?
Oh, I mean, I think AI can do a lot. I think it can do a lot. I think, and I can absolutely see this, is going to happen in the next years, that some of the roles in HR that are very repetitive and manual at the moment will either the job will disappear or the job itself will be reinvented into something new. Because things like, why should anyone write a contract these days? Like, I don't know. It can be completely automated and written with templates, and you could do it even before AI, but now it makes it even easier. Why should anyone be doing coordination of recruitment, really? I mean, there's tools that do that these days. Again, even before before AI, but now even faster and even easier with AI. So there's a lot of things that AI is going to do to improve the use of time to more value adding time. Writing a contract, sure, it needs to be done. Is it super value adding? Like, well, no, it's not. So let's just give it to an AI or a tool or a system or whatever, some automation. And then let's move on and use that extra time that we now have back to work on more evaluating human side things that we need to do in the business and build relationships. So I think that's where we'll add the value. I think it's a hand in hand. We have to be really careful with compliance, bias, how they build, the tools we implement, understanding them, really understanding how they work. I think that's going to be a skill set for all of us, regardless where we sit in the business. It's all fancy and then you bring it in, but do you actually know what it's doing? That's another thing. Um, so yeah, definitely going to change the face of HR in a good way, I think. Um, yeah, I mean, there's always trade-offs.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I'm normally I was working in the telecoms industry and for quite some years, and I saw this disruption. I was really live at the disruption when smartphone was developed or the first iPhone came out, and it was really incredible to watch that one fact that somebody put a product into the human intuitive or the human intuitive of people into a product that this disrupted the market totally. So I mean, I was
Mhm.
working at Ericsson at this time, and they
Oh,
really
wow.
all of them disappeared because I mean they fell in love with all the technical features, and then somebody stood up and said, okay, let's make a phone with just one button, and then you can use it and it follows your intuition. And so this was the proof for me that if somebody is following human needs, it will be successful.
Yeah.
And for me, AI, and I'm really a big fan of AI, and I love technical stuff. So I'm not against AI, but I always question what can it do for humans. And at the end of the day, we are talking about employee and candidate experience.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best value now, or what companies can really take out of this to use it to improve candidate and employee experience? What do you see? Which kind of technical solutions do you
Mhm.
see, or where's the benefit in? Because if it doesn't make sense for humans, honestly, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, so it's a technical solution. It's wonderful to watch it from a technical perspective, but I think at the end of the day, it needs to do something for humans.
Yeah, it's a very interesting perspective, and I like it. I agree. It's I think AI. There's a lot of tools out there, right? And I've seen quite a number of them, especially obviously in this HR people space.
Mhm.
I think where the benefit and adage for employees, including HR, because HR are employees too,
Mhm.
is time. You get time back to do more. Firstly, more and more productivity and focusing on things that are, I would say, less mundane. So for me, I hate doing repetitive mundane tasks. Like it's like no one likes to take notes. No one likes to do
Yeah.
like I don't ever want to write another contract again in my life. If you don't have to, why would you?
Yeah.
So I think the excitement or the interesting type of work that people do will increase because you'll be taking away a lot of these repetitive, boring tasks. At least that's where I would start when looking at AI adoption, like things that you can easily, things that it
Mhm.
can do that you don't want to do.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. So that just makes your enjoyment of your time go up. Like if I don't have to do
Yeah.
admin, I'm like way happier. Second thing
Mhm.
is where it can help in I think in the L&D space, we all struggle with. I worked in lots of companies. They always had a learning and development budget. They always had training modules. They always had access to stuff. Did I do any of it? No.
Yeah.
Why? Why did I not do any of it? Because it was not built into my day-to-day behaviors and my day-to-day workflow. It just didn't. I had to stop what I was doing, allocate time, do a scenario or a training or whatever, and then go back to my work, and then I'd forget everything that I did, And where I think the benefit of AI comes in this space really specifically is, now there's a tool that I was testing for someone. It's called Use Waggle AI. They're not paying me or anything. I just think it's cool. And it, jumps into your call as a leader. So it's a leadership kind of support coach. And it's trained on all the things that you need for leadership, that we know scientifically makes you a better leader. And what it does is it tracks you as you talk to goes in and listens, and it transcribes, and it basically learns about how you interact with, let's say, Rudi. I'm having a call with you, and it will jump in and it'll tell me at the end of it how I ranked on my leadership skills, and say, well, and it'll tell you exactly in the call where that happened. It'll let you reference it, but it will also then remember the conversation we had. And next time I go have a call with you, it'll say, hey, Jess, last time you talked with Rudi, you didn't delegate very well and you weren't very empathetic. Here's some tips on how to do that better in the moment of your behavior flow. So what it does is it takes out the stop and start, it takes out the false scenarios. It puts the learning on a continuous journey throughout your day-to-day, work, and it gives you feedback. And it's like having a personal coach and mentor sitting next to you. That's the kind of AI that helps, and I believe is good for business and good for humans. That in itself, I would just love that at work. So AI can do so many things, from boring admin, to coaching like this, and jumping in and being in your workflow in the day to day. But then there's things like, have you ever had an intranet at work? I'm sure you have, where you cannot find a single thing. You got an intranet to, be a knowledge base. You've got things to find, and you can't find a thing in these things. In years, I started with, SharePoint back in the day. I don't know, it's over 15 years now, probably, with SharePoint, and I couldn't work out how to do it. I just didn't know where anything was. And then you go into, you've got your Jira, Confluence, your Confluence setup. Also couldn't find anything. Now you've got Notion. Also couldn't find anything in Notion. I have it myself. Still can't find anything in Notion. So what can we benefit here? Well, there's AIs that connect all in, and it references everything, and you can just ask it a question and it tells you the answer. As long as it's written in there, it'll tell you the answer. How great is that? My day just got a million times better just thinking about the fact that I could do that. So all these first level support, employee first level support questions, automated, much faster. So that stuff goes to just the day-to-day enjoyment of work. I don't know. For me, it just makes me feel happy to think about that. So yeah, lots of things. Onboarding, there's millions of things I could go into, but those are three kind of use cases where I think AI can easily jump into business right now. And also without having a lot of negative bias or impact in that we're kind of worried about with this recruitment space, right? So I didn't talk about recruitment in that, because I think that space is a little bit, we've got to be a little more cautious when we just jump to tooling in that space. I love it, but I think there needs to be some understanding of how it works before jumping. So that, start with other stuff.
Yeah. But that does mean, I listen to you now, and it's really enthusiasm, and there's a lot of kind of crazy things and ideas but what's your recommendation on if somebody as an organization starts dealing with the idea of implementing it? It definitely would make sense from my point of view, and I want to get your opinion on this, to have a kind of a glue of the problems first, because otherwise you can get extremely easily defocused totally, because there's so many options and there's so many support options from AI. So if you have a clue about your problems, it's probably easier to find a solution for a specific problem than instead of getting infected by all this fancy stuff you can play around, because this is then really defocusing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, every business should, this day and age, have a technology roadmap. and it should be part of the business strategy across the business. I think it's not only in HR. Of course, HR has maybe a wider reach in how it impacts the business. But yeah, definitely you need to understand your problems. You just don't understand where you want to go as a business, the resourcing you have available, prioritizing, and that problem statement, like what are the key problems and are these problems the right problems to solve now? Because you can know your problems, but that doesn't mean you should solve it now. And I think that's where it has to be problems plus, where is the business going? What's the strategy? And what resourcing do we have available that's limited, right? People, money, etc. So yeah, definitely. I don't see it. I don't think I've seen any business with a technology roadmap, not in HR especially. And I do see I talk to a lot of HR people, and I've given some advice on how to approach finding tech, not specifically AI, but just any kind of tech. And someone came to me and said, I said, why do you want this new tech? What is the reason? What is the problem you're trying to solve? They're like, well, the engineers just said they didn't like the design of the one we have. And I was like, oh, okay. But are you really going to change? Like, is that the reason? Yeah. And I was like, no, that's not the reason. Like, we don't make business decisions for a core HR system on,
Yeah.
hey, someone doesn't really like how it looks,
Yeah.
Granted, you want to serve your audience, you want to serve your stakeholders, you want to make sure they're happy, but that's not the way you do it. We need to be deeper about that, and we need to push back, and we need to be bold. Like you said, we need to be a bit more bold on this business side of stuff. Maybe not even a bit, a lot. I'm going to say a lot more bold. So yeah.
Yeah, and if as the time is really passing by so quickly, and we have already got 32 minutes, so I mean we are coming to the end of this episode. But what should organizations start doing if they want to be or to jump on that train? What could be the first 3 steps you think is important if you are supporting organization in finding the right tech solution? What is normally the procedure? What is the 3 first important steps which needs to be taken to set it up right?
I mean, if we take away that you need to have a strategy and know what the business problems are, let's say you know what your business problems are and you know the strategy and you kind of have an idea of priorities. Like if you've got that sorted, the top 3 things to start with would be similar to what you do when you're actually hiring a candidate, right? So when you're trying to bring something into the business and invest, you've got to understand, you've got to have requirements. You need to have some idea of what it is that you want. So to start with, you need to know what is it that what is the outcome, ideal outcome? What is the ideal candidate? What is the ideal system? What is must-haves? What are things that you can maybe be like, all right, that's not so must-have. So your deal breakers have to be in there. So you need this assessment kind of reference. That's the first thing. And that's one of the steps that I see everyone skip. But you would never, almost never, actually, that's a lie. I've seen businesses do it all the time. You would never skip a job description, but actually people do, right? But you shouldn't, you have to document it at least for yourself. And if you don't post it, you need to know what you're looking for, right? Number 1. Number 2 is make sure you understand who's affected by the change. Right, the people side of things, who are your stakeholders, map them out, know who is going to be, involved in this from, day 1 all the way through to, the end. And number 3, make sure you have buy-in. Like, make sure that you're not just doing this in isolation. You're not siloed thinking. You're not just going out and doing it on your own. People in the business need to know about it. It needs to be agreed across the business that it happens. It needs to be, talked about. All of that kind of stuff. It needs to be done as a business team, decision, in a sense that it should be on a roadmap, it should be on a portfolio list somewhere, right? People need to know that. So many times people are like, oh, we got a new system, I didn't even know that was coming. It's like, how do you have any kind of new technology affecting employees coming to the business without them knowing it's going to come? So those are the 3 things that I would say need to be done before you go to places like Stakkd, right? Stakkd is the next step. Once you know all that, once you've got that business side of things down, you go search and look for things that could potentially fit that criteria, right? That's the next step, the procurement step, the discovery, all of that shortlisting, all of that happens after. But if you don't have the right foundations, then you're kind of wasting your time. Unless you're just searching the market and you're just interested in what's out there, cool, go search around, that's good. Keeping up to date is always good. But if you really want to be impactful in business, absolutely foundational, you need to do those 3 things.
Very cool. Thank you so much. Jessie, we are really at the end of the session already. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, what is the best way of reaching out to you? Is it LinkedIn or what's the best
Absolutely,
way of...
LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I'm there pretty often virtually. You probably see me there. So just reach out, connect with me, send me a message. I'm very, very happy to chat. So please do reach out and find me there.
Really cool. Thank you so much for your time, Jessie. It was a pleasure having you as my guest. And for the audience there, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed it. And see you next time. Please stay tuned and have a nice remaining week. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Rudi.
Thank you for watching Cappuccino with HR. If you enjoy this kind of conversations, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Then you get all this kind of upfront information, your upcoming episodes, and all my nice guests. Cappuccino with HR is brought to you by WeAreDevelopers, Europe's #1 developer community and a leading platform for connecting HR and companies together with developers. If you want to learn more, visit us on WeAreDevelopers.com. Thank you again for watching and see you next time on Cappuccino with HR.